is NATO the restrainer that is mentioned in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 6 through 8. What real evidence is there that NATO is the restrainer? Well, NATO is a bona fide restrainer of Russian aggression for the last 70 years. While 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 does not give us, does not point us toward Europe, we can find a parallel passage that does point to Europe. And on that basis, we can say that Europe is the location of the restrainer. And that does support the contention that NATO is the restrainer, because NATO, of course, is located in Europe. What is this parallel passage? It is Revelation 13:7. Revelation 13:7. The action is the same as in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verses 6 through 8. In 2 Thessalonians, the restrainer is taken out of the way by the other side. And in Revelation 13:7, the beast makes war against the saints, which would be the Christians, which would be the countries predominantly Christian in Europe. I'll explain why Europe is the focus. The saints, it says the beast will overcome the saints. That means the saints get beaten by the beast. And the beast gains power over every nation, in other words, the whole world. Now, why do I say the term beast here points directly to Western Europe? Well, this term, the beast, goes back to Daniel 7, verse 7 and following, where the fourth beast is the Roman Empire, and the Roman Empire is synonymous with Western Europe. It was centered on Western Europe. There was, Northern Africa and the Middle East, but that was the fringe of the Roman Empire. The center of the Roman Empire was Western Europe. Now, the message in Revelation 17, verse 8 and 11, is that the fourth beast comes a second time. In other words, the Roman Empire will come back into existence, at least a likeness of the Roman Empire. Well, the Roman Empire was Caesar ruling over Western Europe, a one-man rule. And that's what's going to return to Western Europe. One man will rule all of Western Europe. It's talking about Russia invading and conquering Western Europe, and the ruler of Russia will be the ruler of Europe. And so the ruler of Russia will be the beast. See, the term beast refers to a man, not just to the empire. The man who restores the Roman Empire is also called the beast. So The beast has two meanings, the empire and the man who restores the empire. Now, when it says in Revelation 13:7 that the beast will make war against the saints of the Christian countries, it's talking about the man who rules Russia will make war against the Christians of Europe, and the Christian nations of Europe. Just like the restrainer is defeated by the man of sin, who is also called the son of destruction, which means the destroyer. The saints, or the Christian countries, in Revelation 13:7, are defeated by the beast. And so we see there is a powerful parallel between Revelation 13 and 2 Thessalonians. And so, because Europe is the focus in Revelation 13, we can apply that reasoning to 2 Thessalonians, and so Europe should be the location of the restrainer, and NATO is located in Europe, and therefore we have the evidence we need. The fact that Revelation 13:7 says that the beast is fighting against the saints, which means the Christians, this agrees with the situation in Europe. There's Western Europe, which is Christian countries, and then there's Russia, which is communist and anti-Christian, and trying to destroy the church in Russia. It has destroyed hundreds, or if not thousands, of churches. Now, right now, it's going through a charade. It's playing a game. It's pretending that communism is gone, but it's really not gone. They're just going through they're putting on an act, and we just focus on what Russia did up until the end of the Cold War. During the Cold War, during the years of communism, the government was 100% against the church, and that's the way it still is. But right now, it's pretending, it's playing a game. It's trying to deceive the West, the gullible West. Well, America is the leader of NATO, and so if Russia conquers Europe, they have to knock off the United States. It would be unrealistic to suppose that Russia would attack Europe without first launching a preemptive strike against the leader of NATO, the United States. And so we can see why the son of destruction, or the destroyer, is called the destroyer, because launching nuclear war against America would make the ruler of Russia the supreme or ultimate destroyer. He would be destroy more people than Hitler and Stalin and Mao put together, because we're talking about Russia hitting the big cities of America, and there's 330 million people in America. Long story short, the rapture occurs when America gets bombed, and the rapture will not be 2 billion Christians leaving the world together. It'll be more like 200 million Christians in America are departing the world, and well, also there'll be many non-Christians departing the world, but they don't go to heaven with the saved souls. Matthew 13, verse 49 through 51, the parable of the net, is one passage that does present the rapture as including unsaved people. Two groups of people depart the world. The saved people that go to heaven, and the unsaved that don't make it to heaven. And so, this particular passage does support the nuclear version of the rapture, which is what I'm presenting. In case you missed it, I said Matthew 13, verse 49 through 51. The fish are caught up out of the water. They're caught up into the net. Now, that action, being caught up, does suggest the rapture, because the term for the rapture is, of course, caught up. You may be objecting to the idea that only Christians that get killed go up in the rapture. Doesn't 1 Corinthians 15 say we will not all sleep? Doesn't it imply that the rapture will be not a matter of dying? You don't die to go in the rapture. Well, actually, you do die to go in the rapture. Like St. Paul, when he was caught up in 2 Corinthians 12, verses 2 through 4, he was caught. That was when he was stoned to death in Acts 14:19. And so he was temporarily dead when he was caught up to heaven. So the rapture for him was a time of when he was dead, temporarily. Now, getting back to 1 Corinthians 15, where it says, we will not all sleep, which would mean we will not all die. Well, actually, we can interpret that differently. See, sleep can be taken two ways. The act of going to sleep, which means the act of dying, or the state of being dead. I take it the second way. Paul is saying we will not all leave corpses that are the state of being dead. A corpse is sleeping metaphorically. You see, in nuclear war, the victims around ground zero, they will be vaporized, and so they won't leave corpses that sleep, that look like they're asleep. And so that's what Paul is talking about. He's saying there's a certain portion of the rapturees, the people that get raptured, they will, many of them will not leave corpses. That's what he means when he says, we will not all sleep. I want to emphasize that Russia hacking into our government computers, which was a news report in mid-December of 2020, that report also said that the hacking had begun back in March of 2020. So now that we're in March of 2021, it's been a full year since Russia has been inside our government computers. And they said they know it's Russia. The experts say that the scale and the sophistication does point to Russia. And one more thing. why would they necessarily be focused on getting into our military, um, the computers that run our retaliatory arsenal, called our triad? Why would they especially want to do that? Because if they can disable our retaliatory arsenal, then they can hit America, they can bomb America with impunity. In other words, we won't be able to retaliate. In other words, Russia wins nuclear war, which is supposed to be impossible. But Revelation 13, the early part of Revelation 13, is a symbolic part, and it talks about a wound that is deadly, but it turns out not to be deadly. Now, the part about the war, which is verse 7, that's the explanatory part. But it explains the symbolism. Now, the symbolism is in like verse 3 and 4. The wound that is deadly is talking about what is supposed to be deadly. A nuclear war is supposed to be deadly. But it turns out not to be deadly for Russia, because Russia has disabled our nuclear retaliatory strike. The computers that run our retaliation. And so we see that this chapter, the whole chapter of Revelation 13, does fit what I'm talking about. What is the reaction to the world after the wound turns out not to be deadly? The whole world is amazed, and they say, who can make war with the beast? So that tells you right now, right there, that the deadly wound is referring to war. And so verse 7 really is a continuation of the earlier part. That's all. For now, I'm going to put a transcript in the description box under the video, so you'll be able to make a paper copy of that, and so that when EMP comes, electromagnetic pulse, will destroy the grid. You'll have the information on paper. My guess is that Russian attack will come around Pentecost. And to look up my video about Russian attack at Pentecost, I made that in 2018. It was talking about an earlier Pentecost, but it could come true for this particular Pentecost, 2021 Pentecost. It'll be the end of May, and the 5 months of tribulation would run from May, the end of May, well, let's say June, July, August, September, October. It would finish around Feast of Tabernacles. Don't believe these fools. Well, these misguided preachers that claim the tribulation will be 7 years. That's much too long. Christ said, I come quickly. That's Revelation 13, 11. I'm sorry, Revelation 3, verse 11. And then Revelation 22, verse 7, verse 12, and verse 20. Now, what does he mean, I come quickly? That means that once the tribulation begins, Christ comes quickly from that point. Now, if he comes after 5 months, that would be coming quickly. But coming after 7 years, no. That's total garbage.